Kelly Kleinman here in beautiful Camarillo, California. Today we're going to talk to Mr. Rusty West. He is the chairman and president of MarketScan. He's got a lot to say. We've got a lot to learn. Let's get going. When I think of MarketScan, I think of consistency, and part of consistency is being able to reinforce yourself as an authority in the industry, and you've been able to do that. What do you attribute that to?
Longevity in the space, being in the space for a little over 3 decades, we've obviously learned an awful lot, and our whole philosophy is you learn every day, and keep pushing, So we're constantly trying to push the envelope of how much data we can aggregate electronically, how many more different ways that we can provide solutions to either our direct clients or our technology partners that can solve problems for them that haven't been solved before.
That makes sense. So what's your approach to helping customers in various categories?
Depends on the customer, right? So the dealer-facing side is pretty easy because we've been doing it for so long. The tack that we have to take is that when a support call comes in or a question comes in, we try to look at it from the asker's perspective, right? What are they feeling right now? What are they experiencing? What's their level of frustration, and how do we solve this problem? The goal is obviously to have everybody happy. That's impossible, but we try to get very close, and if we look at it from the customer's perspective, it certainly sheds a lot of light on how we should handle the problem or address it.
Sure, makes sense. So how have you designed MarketScan's technology to be intuitive for customers so there isn't such a steep learning curve?
The dealer-facing products are relatively easy to train because they were written out of the requests that we've gotten for features over 3 decades. The whole process is we try to make the software package work and look and think the way that the actual sales process in the dealership flows, right?
Sure.
So that part's been relatively easy. Some of the difficulties are going through and getting the dealership, especially for someone who's new to us, getting them to understand what they're seeing, right? Because there's so many different lending institution programs that are out there. It's very common for us to get a call and somebody's screaming, "This information is not right." And it's right, it's just information they've never seen before. It's very fun to watch the dynamic from a new customer, first 90 days, right? Because the first 2 weeks, you get a bunch of calls. "This stuff's wrong, you guys don't know what you're doing." And then, of course, we send over the supporting documentation, we explain it to them. And then towards the tail end of the 90 days, those calls really trickle off. And instead of it being combative, it's, "Hey, what am I missing?" Right? And when they cross that chasm, it really solidifies our relationship with them.
So aside from all the normal training that you do when you bring people on board, how do you train people to become power users? From a normal user to a power user, to fully understand that the platform's available?
So we have a whole bunch of online curriculum. So we have basic training online. We've got some very advanced training. And a lot of the advanced training courses that we have come out of what we've learned from our dealer customers. When we see dealers, we have a dealer customer who's really doing a great job with our tool, and maybe even using it in a manner that was something that we had never thought of. We ask their permission to implement that in our training curriculum, and if they're okay with it, we create a course around it and go through the process of posting them online.
So let's discuss the evolution of the automotive industry. How are consumer habits influencing the industry, and what will MarketScan's role be in the future?
That's a little bit of the unknown, right? The auto industry has evolved so much more rapidly in the last 5 years than I think anyone anticipated. And it kind of didn't really evolve all that rapidly leading up to it, which is unfortunate. We've always tried to be on the really the leading edge of pushing that technology forward. But the biggest driver has been the consumer. The consumers, everybody is connected now through social media, and everybody's impatient. I'm very impatient. I'm the guy who stands in front of the microwave and tells it to hurry up. But Google has made everybody impatient. What used to take 6 weeks to research, I can tell you on my phone, while I'm waiting for my French fries to come out, right? So the consumer has driven the whole process to be a streamlined. They want an Amazon buying experience when they go to get a car. They don't want 3 hours of arguing with somebody, wondering whether they're getting ripped off or not. And that desire has really driven, that consumer desire has driven our focus, which is power all this. And I think the second part of your question is where does Market Scan go?
Exactly.
This, which is, I think we continue on the path that we're on. We literally set out a vision to power this part of the industry, and we're at the very early stages of this journey. And we see most of the path already, which I think is really crucial. And the one thing that's great is, as with every mile of this journey, we see other opportunities and we see other technologies that we want to develop, and we put them on a list and prioritize them, and we knock them down as fast as we can.
Yeah, it's a matter of staying ahead of trends, also, or identifying trends, right? Which brings to mind leasing. What do you see what do you see as similarities between leasing, let's say, 2 decades ago, and leasing today?
So there's 2 pieces to it. Leasing historically is a 7-year cycle. Every 7 years, leasing is either really high or really low. Right now, we're on an upswing. I think probably by mid-year next year will be the peak, which may be the highest penetration that we've seen in 7 years, and it'll start to taper off. So the consumer appetite for leasing is a 7-year sine wave. It's super consistent. It has been my entire life. The landscape is identical and extraordinarily different at the exact same time, meaning that the calculations that are used for figuring a lease payment, that really hasn't changed or evolved. There are fewer lending institutions than there once were, but there are thousands of times more lending institution programs than there ever have been. So the ones who have really survived and thrived are taking tools like our M-Gauge tool and coming up with these super specialized programs like sniper targeting, right?
Yeah.
I want Honda Accord LX 4-door sedan automatics with leather in 91361 zip code for this credit score, and I want to get all that business.
Sure.
They can do that now. And they can do that without buying a whole bunch of other business that they don't want. Yeah. So in order to do that, they need a special for that vehicle, for that consumer, and that zip code. Yeah. And we track all that. So that part's been really amazing for us, because the more complex the lending institution's offerings get, and the more complex the rebates and incentives get, which are all over the map, the more valuable a tool like ours is, because it's impossible to do that stuff yourself. You have
track
to
it all.
Yeah, you got to let a computer do it for you.
Where do you see automotive retailing going in the next decade?
I see a lot of consolidation in the marketplace. I think that the dealerships where there's 1 or 2 or 3 rooftops that are owned by a family, the ones that have done a great job, I see them as surviving and doing really well. The ones that don't, I see them as either going away or getting gobbled up by some of the bigger players. I see a lot of everything going towards digital retailing.
Sure.
The consumers want an Amazon buying experience. The dealers that are on the forefront of trying to provide that or something close to it are cleaning up right now, and I see them as really being the leaders. We will see more evolution in the next 10 years in the automotive space than we've seen in the entire history of the automotive space, and that's going to be very exciting.
I'm going to put a crystal ball out here right now. I'm going to have you take a look at it and tell me what automotive retail sales are going to look like in 2030.
If you take the sci-fi version of me into it, I don't
Jets
know.
and cars.
I think we'll all be flying around in drones, to be honest with you. And I hope we're doing the leasing and financing software on the drones. If it continues on the same path, it's 10 years from now, so who knows? I see a bunch of electric vehicles. Everybody's getting into the electric vehicle market. Elon Musk, unbelievable visionary, did a great job, I think, in advancing battery technology, which was crucial for the cars to really perform the way they perform. And I see a lot of leasing, maybe shorter term leasing. I see potentially some mobility, subscription type mobilities that are out there that are going to come into play. Don't know if it's going to be so much on the new vehicles as much as on used, but it's going to be interesting. I can't wait.
How will it affect your business model?
I don't know. I guess it depends on if they zig or they zag. We're not a giant company. We're not a tiny company, but we're a very agile company. And part of me says, gosh, it'd be nice if you could just kind of take a breather, right? I haven't taken a breather in 30 years. It's just not in me, So I hope the industry goes in a direction that nobody's expecting, because if we do what we've been doing, which is react to it properly and have technology that addresses that needs, that carves out another niche for us.
Do you think that blockchain is going to have any impact on the automotive industry whatsoever?
I don't know if it's going to have I don't know if it's going to be an impact as much as it is just an evolution. We've been aggressively digging into doing some blockchain stuff, and blockchain was such a huge buzzword 18 months ago, right? And once the buzzword bubble kind of dropped, it's just like, this is another technology that is a really secure way of doing transactions, even microtransactions, because it's very, very inexpensive to implement. At the end of the day, the ability to do everything electronically, which is submit a credit application directly to a lending institution for a yes, no, or maybe, and not having to go through an aggregator, the ability to do a smart contract electronically for a lease, a finance, for a balloon, the ability for the flooring company to get paid electronically, for the trade, if there's a payoff on a trade, for that to be able to happen electronically, for the DMV fees to be able to happen electronically, all that kind of stuff. All that can be facilitated in a blockchain environment, and I think that's probably where the industry's headed. But I think it's going to take longer than all of us would like, because there's a lot of companies that have to accommodate for that. And a lot of these companies are very, very large companies, and they don't move as rapidly as small companies do.
Your trajectory of growth over the last 30 years has been very steep. The company has grown phenomenally. You've got happy employees. You're a top shelf company. Have you ever thought of doing something different?
Not once. And I know that sounds crazy. This is the only job I've ever had, right? I was a very good car stereo installer, right? But after college, this is the only thing I've ever done. And I can't wait to get here every day. It's so much fun. We're not doing the same thing we were doing 30 years ago, but we kind of are at the same time. Yeah. And I hope 10 years from now I'm sitting here talking at this table with you, Kelly, telling you how much fun I'm having, because I'm having a ball right now.
What do you see as the next frontier to conquer?
I don't know. I think it's going to present itself. The one that we're working on right now, literally, we're in the early stages and we're getting a ton of traction. Kind of hoping it's still along the lines of what we're doing, which is us powering all these different technologies. But I don't know how the industry is going to change. I have my vision of what might happen. We've discussed that.
Yeah.
And I might be 0% right on that one. We don't know. But it doesn't matter. The industry is going to change, and market is going to change with it. So
we're going to find out a little bit more about what you like to do for fun. We know you're a speed guy. You have a knack for fast toys. Has that always been the case?
Oh yeah. My dad early on, before he started his leasing business, he had a Lincoln Mercury dealership when the OPEC oil crisis hit. So you can imagine how well that worked out, right? Oh, yeah. Then 7 seconds after that, he had a used car lot, right? And I was, I think, maybe 4 years old, and he got a mini bike, a little doodle bike, a lawnmower powered, Briggs and Stratton powered thing traded in, and I was 4, and he threw a helmet on me and gave it to me. So I learned to ride a motorcycle before I learned to ride a bicycle, and grew up racing them, and been involved in racing my entire life.
So you also have a mini bike that I favor.
Yeah.
It's in your garage, I would assume, or somewhere. Tool shed, perhaps. What is it?
So it's a 1971 Honda Trail 7.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and it's red. So I, my dad figured out I had a knack for riding when I was very, very young, and got me involved in racing. And so I raced motocross for years, raced professionally for a few years. Thought that's what I was going to do for a living, and ended up having 3 stints in a wheelchair because of them. And one of them was actually not all that long ago. And I finally said, I'm not going to try and keep up with my kids anymore. But this red Honda Trail 70 my dad had as a pit bike the whole time. And when I was in high school, it got stolen. And so we went camping. We go camping in the desert with the kids and the dirt bikes and the ATVs and the side-by-sides and all that stuff. And there was a guy out there that had one, same color, same year, everything. And I ended up coming home with it that trip. I said, I'm buying your bike. He goes, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. And we ended up working out a deal and ended up becoming pretty good friends. But I have it, and it needs some love. I'm probably going to get it restored one of these days. But yeah.
What makes you tick, professionally and in general?
So professionally, I love to be challenged every day. I love to solve complex problems with really bright people. It's very fun. That's what makes me tick. I think that if you can do that, everything else works itself out, right? Find a problem that needs a solution, come up with an eloquent solution, surround yourself with the smartest minds you can, be their cheerleader, and the customers will come, the customer satisfaction will come, the money will come, all that stuff just happens. It's the result, it's not the goal. And that's what makes me tick professionally. Personally, family, I've got a very crazy family. My kids are nuts. I'm not sure where they get it.
No.
My wife has some pretty good suggestions on that one, but that's what makes me tick. I've got 4 kids. I've got a 25-year-old daughter, a 22-year-old daughter, a 17-year-old daughter, and a 16-year-old son, and they're all very different, and I'm very proud of all of them. And I'm having a ton of fun with my son. He just got his driver's license, and I've got him racing Porsches, and he's very good. Probably going to be a lot quicker than his old man pretty soon. And that's a big sense of pride for me. And my 17-year-old daughter, kind of the same thing on a dirt bike, right? Really fast.
Really?
Probably faster than I was when I was racing professionally. And I won't let her go race at that level just because I know what the consequences
Sure.
are for not pulling it off. And the bikes and stuff are so good now that you're not 20 feet in the air like we were when I was a kid. You're 60 feet in the air, and if you mess that one up, that was my last stint in a wheelchair, was trying to do that. I don't want them to go through that. So
Let's play a little word association. I'm going to throw a word out there, and you give me the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? Apple.
Stephen Jobs,
Walt Disney.
visionary,
Bill Gates.
brilliant.
California. Come on.
80-20.
80-20. Explain.
Okay, 80% of California is absolute zen. Though you cannot get better weather. It's fantastic. The auto market here is the richest, most sophisticated auto market in the world, which is super exciting. I remember when I landed on the ground on November 19th of 90. I'm driving up from LAX. And I got freight trained by Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, Rolls Royces, Porsches, all the cool stuff. The stuff that you would see once every 2 or 3 months in Georgia, right? I got passed in a 10-mile stretch, like, wow. And being a car guy, I think this is great. Government in California, not crazy about, but there's a lot of talented people here, and so you put up with it. And,
Okay.
The 20% and 80% is about an even balance.
Yeah, we do. Your team.
Phenomenal.
Racing.
Zen.
Incentives.
Crazy.
Big data.
The answer to everything.
The automotive industry.
Home.
The most fun you've ever had.
Market scan.
AI.
Big part of the future.
A few more. Retirement.
Probably about a week after I'm dead.
Fatherhood.
Greatest thing I ever did.
Favorite food.
Sushi.
Favorite car.
Oh, that's like asking me what my favorite kid is, right? So there's a few. The successor to this car was a car that we campaigned in 2003. And it is the only single GT car to win a Triple Crown on U.S. soil. And Triple Crown is a manufacturer's title, team championship, and driver's championship. Most Rolex series and IMSA, it was ALMS and IMSA and Rolex back then, teams had at least 2 cars and sometimes 3. That season was a 14-race season, and Court Wagner and Brent Martini, who were the 2 drivers, took 12 poles and 12 first places with that car. It dominated the series. I ordered it from the factory new, and with the exception of when they raced it, it's never been out of my possession. And so that one, pretty special to me and pretty special to Market Scan. Market Scan was a sponsor. There's a few others. I've got a 1958 Devon D, which is a very odd car. They only made 7 of them. And I've had it for 20 years, and my son, his name is Devon, and he's named after the car. And it's his car now, eventually, right? I mean, it'll be passed down to him if he outlives me.
Yeah.
But that one's a pretty special one. And then all the goofy ones, each one's got its own personality, but those are the 2 that are most special.
Favorite beverage.
Politically correct. I love water, and I like really good vintage Bordeaux's.
How about favorite vacation?
Don't really take them. I'm starting to. Literally 30 years, or almost 31 years of doing this, and I've taken 3 2-week vacations. The last vacation we did was last summer, and I took 2 weeks off, and it took me a long time to unplug. And we went to Atlanta and visited with my brother for a night, and then drove to Chattanooga, spent a couple nights there, and then went to Nashville. Spent 3 nights in Nashville and a couple nights in Memphis. Saw all of Tennessee, which I hadn't been to Tennessee since I was a kid, and that was very fun. Kids had a great time. But I don't know. My favorite vacation hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Rusty.
Wow, I wasn't expecting to ask it that way. I don't know. Little nuts, right? ADD. Very passionate about this place. I'm very lucky. I've got. I literally have a family with about 60 members, right? I've got the 5 of us, and I got the 55 people here. And with the exception of where I see them, there's not much of a distinction for me. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty blessed.
Your dad.
My mentor, my best friend, my business partner, pioneer leasing, absolutely brilliant. Was very lucky to have an opportunity to work with him all those years. And he was very lucky to have the opportunity to work with me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no question about it.
No, I say that in jest. We used to joke. He had this unbelievable ability to negotiate. I mean, the best negotiator ever. And he could negotiate and get screaming deals, and people were just glad to let him buy stuff from them for nothing, right? Or pay too much for stuff from him. And we always joke because he was very, very good at doing what he did, which was running the right side of the business, and I was pretty good at running the left side of the business. And we used to always joke and said, if you ran the left side and I ran the right side, we'd probably still be working together, but we'd have a hamburger joint somewhere because he was terrible at technology and running the sales department, that kind of stuff. That's not my expertise. Thank God we got Steve Smythe, our CEO here, he's done a great job filling my dad's shoes.
Yeah, Steve's a great guy.
Yeah.
If you were going to write your own legacy and your impact in the automotive industry, what would it say?
He wrote the book on leasing and changed the way people buy cars for the better. That's what I hope it could read.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure meeting with you and having this conversation.
Thanks.
Great success in the future.
I appreciate it.